People should have sex only to make babies.
Well, I think that's his opinion.
Yeah.
And he's welcome to it. There are so many opinions about everything. You know, some people say even for the.
And this is another.
There are rules within Tantra that if you ever ejaculate, then you've wasted your life or something. It's so extreme, so extreme. So I don't think it's very good to put people in straitjackets like that.
Yeah.
If they realise it for themselves, then let them apply it. But to be spouting rules that everybody else has to follow and giving people fear about what they're not living up to, it's not very useful. In fact, it's quite destructive.
Slow and steady, I would say. I think ego, as an individual's ego, is causing a lot of problems. So, what I propose to this whole cosmos is that if you stand upside down,
oh God, here we go.
The ego from your head will fall down.
Oh, we're getting into zucchini yoga now. Okay. All right, so we'll do a mini meditate, shall we? 2 minutes. Let's come back to whatever the.
Can we let our ego?
You can stand on your head if you want.
Now I'm zero. Oh God, I'm slowly 0 point something. Wait.
And then after our 1 minute mini meditate, I'm gonna ask you
in the future.
I'm gonna ask you whether
you're
thinking from being.
I didn't get it. I'm sorry.
Let's have a 1 minute mini meditate, and then I'm gonna ask you to go back to speaking from being. Do you know what that's like?
Like what is it?
Let's try. Let's just go still for a second.
Yeah.
Let's just chill and try and not be your mind just for a moment. Not saying that you are, but it's easy the further we get out to go into that mode. Just let everything be as it is. If you feel you have to change something or calm it down, that's okay, but observe yourself doing that as well. Otherwise, just be conscious of everything without needing to change it. So you can feel the feeling of your body and the sounds, whatever appears to attention. Letting go is okay. Balancing things is okay. Things feeling uncomfortable actually even is okay. Trying to change them is okay. Not trying to change them is okay. Being who you are with all your faults is okay. This person is not you, but they're okay. Maybe more than okay. The world with all its faults and all the people with all their faults is okay. All the feelings, good or bad, are okay. Feeling your heart in all of this is very okay. Being kind to yourself and letting yourself be is good. So does it really need to be anything other than the way it is? Need? Do you really need to be anything other than the way you are? Okay. Don't go in the mind. So let's try and stay from this place if there's a calmness in you at all. Try to not. You notice when someone looks they're generally trying to reference a filing cabinet somewhere in their brain to go in there and go into the mind and take something. I mean, there's nothing wrong with resolving things in your mind, but another way is just to be here, being what you are, and then just if something pops out, you don't know what it's from, haven't gone to go and get it.
Yeah, pedagogies.
Up. Up. Stay. Let's try it. Exercise. Stay with me.
Oh, yeah, okay. Are we like doing some subliminal messaging?
No,
Okay.
we're just being.
Okay.
We're practicing not doing a bunch of stuff that we might normally do.
Okay.
Just doing less. We're being here.
Right. Okay. Do we have to make eye contact?
It just helps. We don't have to,
Okay. Mm-hmm.
but I think it's a very good help. It has been used before.
Okay.
So there's nothing mysterious. There's no extraordinary infinite grace transmission
I mean,
going on. There's just like dropping some of the usual activity, or just even feeling what that's like.
right.
To just be presence,
Mm-hmm.
and that mind and that thought just to happen inside that,
Yeah, man.
rather than forgetting about the presence
Yeah.
completely and then just going 100% into mind mode.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So what you got to say to yourself?
Oh, this?
Anything?
Yeah, no, I like it. I think this really helps looking into people's eyes, and then really, I feel like I calm down, and it's like some kind of stability, grounding happens, and also
Mhm.
there is a connection,
Mm-hmm.
and it really helps.
It's like it takes like when you close your eyes and you meditate,
Yeah. This is much better, easier, I think.
it's easier in some ways, and it's
Yeah.
also, but of course it's not always available to you,
Yeah.
but it does allow whatever happens there to integrate into an awake, eye-open space. It's like meditating with your eyes open.
Yeah. Also because there is a other energy which is like yeah, right?
Yeah, I felt
Other
as if we
person.
had some space cookies or something.
Space
Right.
Exactly.
yeah, without having space
That's what I
having
felt
the
when you were
experience.
like,
Yeah.
Exactly, dude. Dude, have you ever read the Soka Rinpoche? That's the ultimate initiation within Tibetan Buddhism. It's called initiating a person into the nature of mind, the ground of being, or space cookies, depending on.
Color you got. I'm enjoying the conversation, but hey, man, beyond that, apart from all that, you're such a handsome man. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, definitely. That helps.
Everyone
too.
looks a lot better when you look.
Yeah, especially when you're like trying to make eye contact, your jawline and things like that.
Everything helps, right?
10 beers, get the beer goggles on. It all just helps. Yeah. But anyway, now let's stay there. Let's have whatever discussion we're going to have from that space. Perhaps let's try that. Doesn't have to. Nothing has to be said. Space cookies. Stay with that. And observe your own response. It's not a problem, just see it. Doesn't matter if you're hiding or closing down or enjoying or whatever, just see whatever it is. Don't try too hard, just let yourself be, really. You're not really even attending to what your responses are. So from this place, who are you? Don't have to answer. If you're going into an alternative reality, it's okay. Just let it be. Is there any person here? What do you... anything? Worth speaking from that? Anything
What?
you notice?
Yeah, I realize in like very light mood, like casual state, and then slowly I feel more, you know, more stable, and whatever things that you're talking, it's very much relevant. And yeah, I do have a question. Like 2-3 days back, I was talking to somebody about the same thing, and the same thing I'm telling you. Like there's a question. So like we always talk about same thing what we always say. Okay, I had that space. I felt that once, and then I lost it.
Right.
And then you're always trying to hard to be. You have to constantly trying hard to be in that space,
get it back.
state of bliss.
Mm-hmm.
And then I stopped trying because when I was like few years back when I was meditating and being alone, and it helped to be in that space, but then you can't just be that, keep doing that. There are other things you need to do, and also like sometimes when I try to be alone and there's too much that's going on, so then it's better to be with people, and that helps me to be in the present with people, and be in the present and be alive and actually connecting with human is like a very human, like it's a normal human need to connect with human. It helps, and sometimes interacting with people, it brings me here because sometimes we have something somebody says and you feel you feel bad about it, or there are negative emotions, negative response, and getting triggered by it. That brings you here again. So of course you have to do everything. It's part of the whole thing. Everything being alone and being with people and everything is a part of the whole thing.
Yeah.
But in specifically in both the scenario, how do you deal with negative emotions? How do you, because whatever we say, okay, you don't feel it, don't acknowledge. But the thing is, we feel it every day. There are points, there are times when we feel negative emotions, and whether we like it or not, whether we feel it and we have to deal with it. There is a way that you just drop it, you don't address it, you don't deal with it for a moment. Yeah. And maybe there is a way that you can address it, and then you just not get into it all the time. You know?
Yeah.
It doesn't keep coming to you.
Well, it's tricky because you're talking about both the negative emotions that flow from living an ordinary life, like, and the choice whether or not you want to prioritize being in the deep space, right? So that's one thing.
Yeah. And even when when I'm alone and sitting alone, there is also negative stuff comes up.
Right.
And in that scenario, it helps me to get out and interact with people, and yeah.
Right.
So it's like both the places there is something that
Yeah.
I guess that I maybe needed help in that.
Yeah, well, it's really hard to say
Yeah.
one size fits all because, I mean, the tradition will say, you know, it presents itself as the answer to all problems, right?
Yeah.
If you were in the deep space, then you wouldn't get negative emotions.
Yeah.
That's what everybody's hoping for,
Yeah.
aiming for
Yeah.
in spirituality.
Mostly, yeah.
Even though you've got these different styles that are saying, oh, well, you know, don't even try to get that kind of thing. So it can be confusing because you've got opposing ways of coming at the same thing. So, but it comes down to honesty with yourself. Is like, is this accessible to me? See, often people do hide from the deep. You know, they say it's too hard. I can't do it. Sometimes it's very available to them, and sometimes it's not so available to them. And it's true. We're attracted to it because we know it. Actually, it's not a foolproof. It won't solve everything.
Yeah.
Which is what we hope for. We hope to get to some state where we have no more suffering, no more problems. You know, it makes these enormous promises. But the truth is, I know for myself, back in the day when it was in some ways more accessible than it is now, I just tried everything. I really did have that Rolodex where I had all these techniques. I had dropping out, I had doing this, changing that, going here, doing that, all these techniques. And I just tried them. And it seemed that most of the time, if I was sincere about that, I would have an answer.
Yeah. Yeah.
But there'd always be... And when spirituality talks about having sincerity, you have to be careful that you're not living a shallow life when you really want to be living a deep life. Because unless you've actually spent some time living a deep life, you don't really know what it really can do for you. If you're done with that, then you're done with that. If you don't need that anymore, or only occasionally, like that's how it feels to me now. More and more, I still want to go to those places and take control with certain techniques from time to time when it's necessary. And sometimes things overtake me, and I just... The skill that I've learned from that lets me just be in them and generally pass through them. It's not instant. I'm not pretending I'm a Superman or anything like that. Sometimes shit really happens. All the more so in some ways. It's quite different because all sorts of stuff is dredged out of your unconscious. It's actually more intense than the stuff I used to experience. So it's very different depending on where you're at. But I suppose I just say use what you got. What seems true to you. I'm not saying it's wrong to go to people. If you really think that's the best solution in the moment, that's totally okay.
Recently I have experienced both spaces.
Yeah.
When I was being alone and trying to have like just alone time, and then it was difficult. It was like putting me down more and pulling me down, and then I realized I needed to balance it, and I need to go out.
And as you say, it's balance because you know you also can't be afraid of down because people who are very invested in how other people think of them. For years, I used to do techniques that people would say, like John would say, almost like die. Occasionally, I would feel like I needed to die to myself.
Yeah.
And I knew that was like the ego wants to die. This whole suicide thing and everything. It's like it's okay to go into a space within where you process. It's almost like you die to yourself. Like you could lie down or meditate, and you just drop everything. It's like drop the ego, and that can be very, or have an afternoon nap. God knows, you've got to know for yourself what works. And I would come out of that and people would go, what's wrong with you? You look really depressed. And you go, oh my God, I've just literally come back to myself. And if you listen to what people say, so, well, they say it's, I know so many people who are like this. They say, oh, well, they said it's like this. They're not knowing for themselves. If you know that that's taking you to a deeper space, don't care what anybody has to say about it. You know that like that heaviness is sometimes exactly what you need.
What you need, yeah, exactly. Yeah.
You need to go into your heaviness and the profundity and the sobriety of yourself. It's very renewing. If you're just always blah 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 out here on the edge, then you can really get caught out on the edge and just not wake up. That's what they mean by waking up. You just realized you knew that there was something you had to do, but you avoided doing it.
Yeah, you know that something something
I
really,
have that
something
issue.
significant
Yeah,
is coming.
I'm suffering from that issue.
Yeah, but also you've got to be careful with your own mind too, because you can go the opposite direction. Like you go to a Muji Satsang, like Trudon, and it's like all of a sudden you feel guilted out. Like I should be doing this 100% because he was saying it in the one. It's like again, it's your knowing of your balance. It's not taking in. Got to be really careful of the ideas that other people feed you, and be your own authority, but a very honest authority with yourself about what's gonna, what you know of you, that you've used that works or seen or whatever, and making the best balance to yourself that you can find. What do you think? Yeah. So what? How did that mean? Meant something to you in that?
No, I mean, my mind was so scattered. Yeah.
Right, but you've got all this stuff like the mind, don't go to the mind, never think stuff. That's really what it's pointed at. There's nothing fundamentally wrong with a mind that's balanced and grounded.
Mm-hmm.
It's when a mind becomes like a machine that won't stop.
Yeah.
That you could stop, but you won't, because that's just easier for you. You're afraid, for instance, you can have so many ideas in your mind. I'm afraid of going to that deep place. Sometimes you do have to make a payment when you go to that deep place. The payment is to get heavy. The payment is to go through some stuff, or to face up to some stuff. When you've meditated a lot, particularly something like Vipassana, you realize that payment is very real.
Oh, I've
When
never
you
done those things. Yeah.
Well, when you sit still, your stuff comes through your body.
Yeah.
And it's just, that's what the Buddha said. This was his most fundamental teaching, was the sense that everything that you've been doing that's not perfectly balanced is going to come up as a sensation.
It's true. I
Yeah.
always felt that when initially I was going to satsang, I could hardly sit quietly. I'm like, I just feel so much discomfort in my body. I just cannot sit.
Right.
Sometimes I doze off. Sometimes I'm yawning. Sometimes I'm just so much discomfort just to sit quietly. It's just impossible.
Right.
And then slowly I realized that's the mind that is making you this thing that you're uncomfortable. But the thing is, like, I understand what you're saying. The stuff comes through body, in physical discomfort or physical things like that. I realized because last, like when around Mahadipam, few days before, I was feeling very depressed and uncomfortable. I mean, like emotional roller coaster ride and all this.
Right.
And then when I walked for 3 hours, like 1.5 hours in the afternoon, 1.5 hours at night, and I felt so much better because the stuff
comes through the body.
just release.
There is the calming effect of that, of like not being distracted. But I mean, the most direct method, and this is why they say if there was one single technique the Buddha said was this word, everybody agrees in all the Buddhist schools.
Yeah.
The fundamental is basically what they call satipatthana, like sitting and seeing what comes up.
Yeah.
And the fact that you're still means that it can come, and you go, okay, it's there. It might be comfortable, it might be not comfortable, but you are not moving from it.
Yeah.
You're not looking away. You're not saying I'm being, and I'm not interested. You're just rock solid, and it comes.
Okay.
It resolves. That's the thing. People hold on to this stuff because their mind is always trying to do it. But the solution is just to let consciousness do the work. It's like when you realize something, right? You don't have to necessarily apply it. That realization then functions in you from the depth because you've got it. That's what they're going on about, like getting the being, and people are always wondering, did I get it? Did I get it? Do I have to get it again? It's like, it's because they don't recognize that they've got it. But training in meditation is actually incredibly valuable for that reason, because you get attuned to seeing that something as subtle as feeling a feeling is like your whole behavior for the last week was based on this uncomfortable thing. And you just sit with it for 20 minutes, it's gone. Well, it's not always gone, but you've been, at very least you've been with it, and you don't insist upon it going, but quite often it just simply does just go. And that's in the Satipatthana. It says, feel the sensations as sensations. It's basically, you can process everything with your existence by simply feeling it come to you in your body and not flinching from it. It's like, here it is. I got you. You know, you're not going anywhere. You can throw everything you want at me. And that's it. That's why people meditate. Again, all this critique of Advaita that, but there's a person meditating. So presumptuous. There may be a person meditating. There may not be a person meditating. They don't know that. Technique. It's quite ironic that this thing that says it's anti-intellectual in many ways is quite often as intellectual as it comes. You know, just to make this presumption that people are doing meditation wrong. When the people have meditated for thousands of years, it is very useful. Yeah. It may not be the thing itself, but it brings you so close to the door, and then it fizzles and you can walk through. There is a truth to it. So it's, I'm not saying just, you know, meditation got me into the spiritual path. There's no doubt about it. It takes you to a much deeper level, and it can remove some serious crap out of your system. So all this discouraging people from doing techniques, I think, is frankly nonsense. You just have to be guided about what the limitations of those techniques are, and not just get attached to them as means of, you know, which can happen with Vipassana, where you're basically like, then it becomes its own drug. It's like, I use this to make me feel better, rather than be with what is. And isn't it cool? This makes me feel better, but that's not. It's a subtlety about like what it's. But that's a subtle adjustment. Better that than doing nothing and then pretending you're having a spiritual path, and you're just all yappity yap about, you know, I shouldn't think and I shouldn't ever meditate and all this stuff that people walk away from so many satsangs.
Adjustments, adaptability. Those are the qualities that one should gain from doing Vipassana.
Yeah, it's subtlety. It's tuning into your subtlety, and when you tune into subtlety, not only can you feel very subtle things, which has its drawback sometimes, because you go back into the world and you can feel a lot, but believe me, you're going to feel a lot one way or another. And then that develops, like, the mind that then observes that can become more and more subtle itself, you know? You're not saying, I better never think about stuff, because then your mind it stays on ice, it stays naive. I know I've seen so many of these such things, and they imply that you should, you're thinking about something. Well, it's like, I'm refining my understanding. I mean, John says, believe what you know. It's true, because when you see something, if you then install it and reflect upon it in your mind, then different parts of your being are all seeing the same thing. And then you know what to do. I mean, you'll never be perfect in applying your stuff, but you'll develop a wisdom that you can apply to other people, that you can apply to yourself, as long as you don't overplay it and turn it into a new set of rules. It's a refinement of the whole being. It's a refinement of the mind, refinement of the feelings, refinement